Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Patrice with Chatting with Patrice. Today, my guest is Dionne. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Patrice.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Listen, I received this in the mail, and
Right.
probably a lot of Shelby Township residents received this in the mail. And I thought, oh my God, this is so awesome. We really have a lot of talented people that live in Shelby Township, and I'm happy to address that. I really am. So I like to say that, and I'm glad to be a resident of Shelby Township. I see what inspired me to move here. How long have you been living here?
We've lived here now for 10 years.
Wow. Okay, great. I've lived here for 4. I love it.
I do too, and I couldn't agree more. I enjoy every time I get the paper because there's always an article about somebody doing something
Yes,
interesting and
yes.
fun.
Yes, yes. I really like that. I like that. What does your writing process look like?
My writing process, I hate to say, is rather painful. I'm a constant editor. It's very difficult for me to just sit down and write a scene as I might imagine it. I write a few sentences and then I go back on the computer and I change a word here and there and I correct the punctuation if I've made a punctuation error, and then I go on to the next paragraph or the next sentence. Some people, for them, writing is easy. I have to say, for me, ideas are the easy part, and the actual writing can be a bit of a struggle at times.
Oh, okay. Now, how often do the writing ideas come? Do they just come to your head, like throughout the day? If you're out in your grocery shopping, what do you do?
Ideas do tend to come when a person is otherwise occupied, like, for instance, driving. If I'm stuck on a scene, I'll just walk away from the computer and go do a few errands, and then as I'm occupied with driving, the ideas just pop into my head. Sometimes ideas come in the middle of the night, you know, the classic wake up and scribble it down on the pad by your bedside. So yeah, you know, there's the big picture ideas, like what's my next novel going to be about, and then there's the smaller issues, like what should this character say in this scene? Should I write this scene from this character's point of view or someone else's, and so forth. So it's a constant process, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay. It is a lot of fun. I was in a writer's group once before, and I used to carry around with me a tape recorder. I would get the most interesting ideas when I was out and I had nothing to write on. I would just say, wow. And then when I would get home, I would lose the idea.
It's
And
true.
it was really good ideas too. And I was like, okay, well, what should I do? And I thought, I'm going to bring a tape recorder with me as I go along throughout the day.
I've learned to use my smartphone and the record feature on that. But
Okay.
prior to that, one time, I can only hold 3 or 4 sentences in my head, and then you know that's it. That's it. That's all I can manage. So I remember one time I was driving to the grocery store and I got those 3 or 4 sentences. So I parked and I dug through my purse for a pen, and I had no pen. I had paper and no pen. So I ran into Myers and I hurried back to the school supply section, and I tore open a package of pens and wrote down my sentences.
goodness.
Of course, I paid for the pens later, but
Right.
I could only wonder what somebody might have thought if they saw me tearing into that package of pens.
Yes, because you can lose it.
You can.
You can lose it fast. And I would do it all the time when I would get home and I would say, no, what was that I was supposed to be writing?
It's true.
So I understand. Do you have any strange writing habits?
I don't think so, but somebody else watching me, I suppose, might say they're strange.
Well, I mean strange writing habits as far as like people say, I was watching TV and I heard this guy say one time, well, sometimes I just write on the top of my head. If I'm doing a cartwheel or if I'm doing something or whatever he's doing at the time, an ideal comes. Mm-hmm. He just, whatever he's doing, I guess he was exercising at the time. So he just felt like, okay, well, I need to write this right now.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've heard of people writing on their arm, and I know of one author who has a set of shower crayons because she gets ideas when she's in the shower, and she'll scribble them on the walls. So I think compared to that, I'm fairly normal.
Okay, that's great. What book do you wish you could have written?
You know, there are so many wonderful books out there, but I have to say a couple of the books that I really admire were Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth and the follow-up. They were massive books, and they just they involved so much research into the time period, and they were so engaging. I guess that would be a book that I wish I would have written myself, Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth.
Okay. Did you read it?
Oh, yeah. It's 1,200 pages, mind you.
Oh, my God.
How
long did it take you to read it?
About a week.
Week?
Yeah.
Really?
And the follow-up, which I can't recall the name right now, I want to say World Without End, but that might not be correct. That's also 1,200, and I read the two back to back. It was a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. It will probably take me, distractions. Mine is distractions. So in order to do it in a week, do you just go straight through? Do you just kind of like...
Yeah, I just go straight through. I mean, obviously, there's day-to-day chores that get in the way of the reading, but I am a fast reader. I don't generally read books while I'm writing. And so when I finish a novel, like when I finished the Killing novel last November, I hadn't read a book in so long. I quickly sat down and read 6 or 7 just straight through, like I was thirsty. I had to refill the well.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. If you could cast your character in the Hollywood adaptation of your book, who would your characters be?
Well, that's a kind of an interesting question because my current book is based on a television show, so it already comes with the characters attached to it. Joel Kinnaman and Morel Enos are the stars of the show The Killing, and my novel is based on that television show. In fact, when I was researching and writing the novel, when it came time to describe the character, his looks or even his height, I just Googled the actors, and so in this case, the actors were already supplied for me.
Wow, that's great. Well, that part was easy.
It was.
At least.
That part was. And so was, just to talk maybe a little bit about the process for this book, I was hired by Titan Books and Fox, which licenses the characters, to write this novel based on the television series. So Fox supplied me with scripts as they were produced and before they were aired, and I had access to those so I could see the characters' dialogue in written form. And then they also set me up with access to a passworded website where I could watch the episodes anytime I needed to. So for instance, when it came time to describe the main character is a detective, when it came time to describe her office, I just found that scene in one of the episodes and froze it on my computer screen and described what I saw. A wooden coat rack in the corner, whiteboard over here, desk lamp, shelves behind her, and so forth. Because it was important that I get details like that right, because this book will, while it does stand alone and it's a complete story in itself, it's for fans of the show. So, like I say, it was important for me, I felt, as the author, to get those details right so that fans would recognize the characters and the setting.
Okay. Now, as the author, what has been your greatest accomplishment?
I think getting that first book published. It's so difficult to break in. My first novel is called Freezing Point. It's an environmental thriller, and it sold to Berkeley, which is a division of Penguin Putnam. So, having that novel be purchased for a lot of money by a major publisher really was an unrepeatable accomplishment. I think it doesn't matter how many books an author goes on to publish and sell and how well the books do. There's just nothing like that first novel being published.
Great. Now, how did the connection come about between you and Fox?
That came through my agency. Titan Books in England is the publisher of the novel, and they were looking for a female thriller author to write the book. And they contacted my agency. My agent asked me if I would be interested. And to be honest, my reaction was, should I be? Because the show airs on cable and we don't subscribe to cable, so I had never watched or heard of the show. But I watched the first episode, purchased it from Amazon and watched it, and I was immediately hooked. It's a very excellent crime drama, and the writing is very strong, and I knew that if they wanted me, I'd be writing this book.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm definitely a plotter. My first two novels, I came up with the story idea first and then created the characters as needed to support the plot. And particularly for the new novel, The Killing Uncommon Denominator, the characters were already supplied to me since they were well established by the television show. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was after I was approved as the author of the book, I sent 3 story ideas to Fox via my editor. And they chose one story idea, which is the one I ended up writing. And at that point, they needed a detailed outline of the story with all the major plot points, right up to how the story would end and how it would resolve, which was a little difficult to think that far ahead. Mm-hmm. Before I'd ever written a word of the book, I had to completely outline it. But at the same time, when it came time then to write the book, it made it simple to write because all those things were already established, and I just wrote according to the outline.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you read any of your reviews? Do you give any feedback?
I do. I read my reviews. I don't.
Good and bad.
Good and bad. I never respond, but I find the first few bad reviews when you're a new author, yes, they do sting. But you have to take a step back and look at the situation realistically. I don't like every book I've read, and I'm sure that you and I have different tastes when it comes to books and novels, and mm-hmm. one that you might like, I might not, and vice versa. So, you have to give readers space to have them not like your story. Yeah. And sometimes they come up with some clever things, even in the negative reviews. For instance, my first 2 novels are science thrillers, mm-hmm. and I received a very lovely endorsement from David Morrell. He's the author who created the character Rambo.
Oh,
and yeah,
that was big.
It was, and because my novels have a lot of science in them, the quote that he gave me was, "Karen Dionne is the new Michael Crichton," which was very generous quote. However, a couple of people who didn't like the book have played off of that. Okay. For instance, one reviewer said, "If Dionne is the new Michael Crichton, I am the Pope," which I thought was pretty funny.
Wow.
And another who didn't care for the audio version of the book said, "Dionne is the anti-Crichton," which again, you just have to laugh. I thought those were actually quite clever.
Right.
Yeah.
As if to say, well, wow, what book have you tried to write? You think that in your head, like, well, what book did you try to write?
Exactly. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
That's right.
Yeah.
And sometimes criticism is good. It's not always bad.
Yeah, it's true.
You take it in a good way.
Of course, I like it when someone loves the book. Who wouldn't? What author wouldn't? But it's kind of a bold thing for a writer or any artist, a musician, painter, to take something that's so personal, part of the creative process, and then put it out for people to pass judgment on.
What is your best marketing tip?
My best marketing tip, mm-hmm. write a good book. And I'm not being facetious when I say that, because obviously authors do a lot to talk about their books and promote their books, yes. and so forth. But what really sells books at the end of the day is readers telling their friends about the book. So
word of mouth.
It starts there. Yes,
so you just
it really
say word
does.
of mouth
mm-hmm.
is the best.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go into page 227 where you write, I love this, by the way. But she found a new boyfriend, right? Lance Marcy. The guy who got shot in her trailer. Nah, he wasn't her boyfriend. He thought so. But she still had a thing for Campbell. Big time. That girl had it bad. She'd do anything for him.
Mm.
I like that.
Thank you.
I do. I like that. So was she? So was she a bad girl, or was she just more of a? Can you describe her character? But I did like that part.
Yeah, she misguided. You know, I think a lot of young women they want more in life than what life has dealt them, and so that's the nature of this girl in this story. She takes up with the wrong person for the wrong reasons, and it doesn't go well for her.
Okay, so she didn't have good intentions.
She did, but they were selfish, I guess you'd say. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I can't say too much more because we don't want to introduce any spoilers in
That's
case
right.
folks haven't
So-
read the book.
Yes. Yes. What are you working on now?
Oh,
Or what is your next project? Do you have one?
I do, and I'm very excited about it. It's a novel that is set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. I lived in Michigan's Upper Peninsula for 30 years. When my husband and I were a young
Wow.
couple, we moved to the UP as part of the Back to the Land movement in the 1970s. So we were city kids. My oldest daughter was 6 weeks old, and we lived in a tent. We carried water from a stream. We didn't have electricity. We sampled wild foods while we built a little cabin. We had a lot of fun. That's the kind of thing you can do when you're young. And I've always wanted to write a novel that incorporated some of those experiences, but I needed the right story. So I'm happy to say that this spring I did find that story, and it's about 1/3 written. My agent is really excited about the book, and he hopes to go out with it, as we call it, to send it to publishers this fall, and maybe it can find a home, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Will you ever write children's books?
No, I don't think so. My inclination always has been towards writing for adults. So
Great. Great. I can't stop looking at this. This is like, oh my God. I just can't believe it. Shelby Author writes TV show tie-in novel.
thank you. It really was an honor to be the author who was chosen to bring that novel, or excuse me, that television show to the page. I have a lot of friends who are thriller authors, and when they heard that I had been selected to write the novel, some of them said, I'd love to write that novel. So again, it was very exciting to be the one that had that opportunity.
So how did Fox rate it?
Oh, they love the book. Of course, they had to approve, the outline,
Yes.
and they had to approve the final manuscript. And so it published June 24 here in the States and July 11 in England. And it will be available in all of the countries where the U.S. version of the show was watched. So, Canada, Australia, those countries too.
Wow. I'm impressed, really.
Well, thank you. And I'm just starting to hear from fans of the show. A couple have written to me, and a couple have posted reviews on Goodreads or on Amazon, and they say I nailed the characters, which makes me feel really good because, as I said earlier, this book is for the fans of the show. So,
Great. Now, have you had a book signing yet?
I have. I had a launch party at the Romeo Library, and I also did signing at Agatha's bookstore in Ann Arbor. But right now, I don't have any other live events planned. I'm just working on that new book because that's what writers do. We write.
Good. Now, do you have any plans for more book signings in the near future for this book right here, right now?
Nothing locally, although I'm certainly open if a group wants to have me, or a bookstore wants to have me in to sign. The 4th and final season of The Killing airs beginning August 1. And it's available
This year.
Right, exclusively on Netflix. So it's going to put an end to the series. It's going to wrap up the questions that were left hanging at the end of season 3. So it's possible that I might do something locally during the month of August to just play up with that.
What writing advice do you have for other aspiring authors?
My key piece of advice for other authors is write the right book. My observation from my own experience and from watching my other author friends too is it takes a year or more to write a novel, which is a very large investment of time. And in today's publishing climate, it's very difficult to have a book published by a major publisher. The book really has to stand out as unique, different, good. So the fact that a person might be a good writer, that's a given. That they have good ideas, that's a given. but they have to write the right book, the book that's going to make publishers and, well, agents first, and then publishers, and ultimately readers sit up and go, wow, you've got to read this book.
So it really has to be an eye catcher, hold the interest of the reader.
It does, and the kind of book that you can sum it up in a sentence or two. You know, people commonly, after they've seen a movie, if they're really excited about it, they come out and they tell their friends, you just got to see this movie. It's about X, Y, and Z. And they usually sum it up very succinctly, very quickly. So book ideas should be like that too. So for an aspiring writer who wants to be published at a major publisher, I would say don't write the first idea that comes to mind, or even the second or the third, but really dig deep and find that idea that's going to separate you from all of the other aspiring writers, and then you might reach your publishing goals.
Okay. Can you repeat that date again for, did you say August 1?
Yes, August 1, season 4 of The Killing airs exclusively on Netflix.
Okay, on Netflix. Okay. Thank you so very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. This really was a lot of fun.
You're so welcome. Thanks for watching, everybody. The Killing, Uncommon Denominator by Dionne. Have a great day, everybody.